Hi, I'm Gloria St. Germain from the UMTC Elite Educator Program and course creator, UMT membership coach, and I am so excited. My very special guest today is Dr. Ruth McCants, and she is one of our UMTC Elite Educators. And thank you, Ruth, for being here today and sharing your story with me. I should also mention not only is Miss Ruth McCants, PhD, which she's going to explore and tell us about. She's also a piano fun player. So welcome, Ruth. Tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you, Gloria. I'm really delighted to be here. Now, the doctor part, I originally started off in graduate school in counseling psychology. And I would go on to do work in academia. I would be both, I worked in a counseling center, and then I would teach psychology for almost 18 years. But the music never went away. Ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to do music. And then I found myself, whatever I was exploring, I wanted to give it to other people. Right. When I was, I guess about 20, because I had kind of an up and down musical training, and it didn't really start happening for me until I was about 24. I found this teacher who could help with what I started with when I was about 8 years old. And so as a result, like I said, I was in graduate school at the same time in psychology. And then I was studying with this lady who was a concert pianist. And I made a vow to myself that the psychology and the music that I love so much had to combine. And that's brought me to where I am in many ways.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's such an interesting journey that we're all so passionate about what we do and the journey that we share. And it's just been such a pleasure to get to know you inside the UMTC Elite Educator Program. Can you tell me a little bit about, you know, your path, like where your music business was at, and then, you know, sort of how you came into the UMTC Elite Educator Program?
Well, like I said, I had combined the psychology and the music, and then I would teach psychology for any number of years, but I was also gathering music students along the way.
Right.
I would actually be doing both things at the same time. I would be teaching. I would eventually move out of the counseling, direct counseling in the therapeutic arena into teaching. So the teaching part is the core of what brought me to the Elite Educator, because that's what I've been doing. But I was growing I lived in Georgia, and I was growing a tiny little studio. And what I've noticed over the years, I never was getting bigger. I maintained. And so when I saw the Elite Educator Program and also the UMT theory, I said, okay, this is something that can help me to begin to examine this. Because like I said, I was staying at one little space. I get a certain amount of students, and that's where I would sit.
Right. And you were teaching adult students, right? And maybe some
in the early years, I started off mostly with families.
Oh, nice.
And when I was in Georgia, I had kids and I had adults, very few teens. So I would have children, and then I would have adults. And so that's the blending that I had back then.
Yeah. And I think one of the things too, even in teaching and collaborating, is when we have an opportunity to connect musicians with each other, right? I think that's part of what you do as well. Isn't that true?
Yes, I love to collaborate. You know, that's a really important thing for me, is to bring that connection, because after all, music, even if you think about music, it's relationships inside music, and it's relationships with people. So it has to, for me, that's how it has progressed.
Yeah. And I think one of the wonderful things that I see inside the Elite Educator Program is the camaraderie of developing, you know, accountability partners and how has that really served you in, because it's a really lonely profession. You know, I remember when I started teaching, I just literally had no one. I didn't even have any friends that really, I mean, they were maybe taking music lessons, but they weren't teaching as I was.
Right.
And so how has that served you in just knowing that, you know, there's someone you can go talk to?
Well, being in both the coaching program, and then by being open to connecting with people that I'm meeting. See, just like you said, I really, I was in Georgia and then I moved back to California, and I really haven't known any teachers per se. I played in a band, but that's still different in
Yes.
terms of teaching. So being here, I've actually had fellow musician teachers to communicate with. That's been a big thing with me, and developing community.
Yes. And I think too, it helps us as educators when we have our own community of like-minded, you know, educators that can also help us serve our community of students, right? And I guess one question I would have for you, Ruth, is that what was maybe an obstacle or a struggle that you were looking to overcome, because you're obviously looking to grow your business. So what was maybe an obstacle that you were struggling with to say, okay, what do I do next?
Well, in terms of creating the business modeling, and as I've indicated to you, particularly you and Joanne, in terms of literally coming up with a format, or because you outline a template for the business part,
Yes.
and following the steps, because marketing and promoting have not been my easy things.
Yeah.
And so that's the obstacle right there.
Yeah. And I think it is a huge obstacle, I think, for almost every educator, because we didn't go to university to study marketing. We went to study the subject that we teach, and that's kind of where we go. And then as an entrepreneur, now it's your job to, drill down on what does it take in order for you to become financially successful and, to support yourself, but also all the other dreams that you have and things that you want to do with your life. So I think you're not alone in saying, I need to, have a new outlook on teaching, making sure that I'm being paid what I'm worth, because you, after all, Dr. Ruth, have a lot of expertise in, and I know you've talked about creating self-study materials as well. Tell me about that.
Yes, I've been kind of dipping my toes in, but the other part of, because I actually would go back to school and study music. I went to El Camino College, and then I would graduate from there in jazz piano. So what happened, I needed to, because I've always had this thing about composition, and so the online study materials would encompass that. It would encompass the teaching. And now that things are really exploding in terms of online, right, I'm just really motivated to put something out there, particularly in the jazz, teaching adults and teens jazz, blues kind of stuff.
Yeah. And that's my passion. I'm a jazz girl. I love, listening to you play, and it just lights me up. And thank you, Ruth, for bringing that joy, because obviously as an author of the Ultimate Music Theory program, I write about the language that we all need to learn. But when you take the language and you turn it into sound, as you said, it's just one language, a musician's language, and it's universal. So it doesn't matter if you're in, Australia, New Zealand, Zimbabwe, South Africa, wherever you are, we speak that same language, and we get into the groove of that music. And I want you to just, want you to know how much I appreciate your music, because I really do. It lights me up. I see you just going, okay, here's a little something, and you inspire others, because of your knowledge and your passion. And so thank you for that.
And I just want to say that being a UMT theory teacher, that's helping me, because I've had to study a lot of theory, but you got it in a concise type of way. And that is very, very helpful to have it all in one bunch, so to speak.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about how did the UMT Elite Educator Program just help you in growing your music business? And we're talking about our profession, which we're all passionate about, but it is a business. So how did the program maybe help you in growing your business this year?
Well, I have been in it, and it's still tiny, but I have initiated doing the club classes. I actually found with the advanced students that I have, I literally kind of leaned on them a little bit, and I got them to enroll in the actual theory as well as having their individual piano lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm doing, because everything's online, it's really fun. I actually see the connection of teaching people in a group, because they have their individual lessons, obviously, individually, but the theory club class is online. And then it really fuels that when they're working. I do it on a Friday, and basically I'm conducting it like a college class. You have 50 minutes and this is what we're going to do. And I can really see that they progress by working together in this group.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that you shared too was just, in the coaching program, how it's just maybe stimulated your awareness of, how to build the business, the strategies and the steps, and I think the goals too. And I know you've set some pretty big goals for yourself this year, and I'm so excited because you're just on your path to say, well, maybe it'll take me an extra week or an extra month, but never change the goal. Sometimes we need to alter our pathway a little bit. But I think in order to just, put that into motion, as you said, what is going to stimulate income flow into your business, and you're doing it. So congratulations for getting all your theory club classes. And the first step, right, Ruth, is just starting. Isn't that the hardest thing always?
Because when we talked about, we had any number of weeks in the coaching program about initiating this, and yes, it is starting it. It's literally reaching out and saying, look, students, you need some of this, but I'm also keeping in mind that I need to do this. I didn't tell them that part, but yes.
Well, it makes me smile when you say that, Ruth, because I think as entrepreneurs and business owners, and we as educators we really do need to be continually, developing our own professional development so we can grow, and then we can serve others that are also looking to grow. And we talked about that a little bit in our coaching call today, just how can we elevate ourselves first of all, and then just say, hey, come stand up here with me and join me on this pedestal, this platform of knowledge, and share that with the world. And I'm really proud of everything you've accomplished. You've shared a lot in the coaching calls and things that you have done for yourself, and I'm really grateful for that. So share a little bit about what's coming up for you next in your business goals. What's on your agenda for 2021?
Well, like I said, taking the compositional materials that I have been developing, I have another, I guess you could call it sort of an offshoot, music and my intuitive work. I do astrology, but what I have done is create a podcast, and the music that I composed is the music that's being used for that. And I want to deal with compositional kinds of things a lot more. And like I said, composing music, putting it together as part of my online courses. That's really what I'm looking for in 2021.
That's so exciting. And what is the name of the podcast?
Your Sacred Wild Soul podcast.
And where can we find you and learn more about you?
Well, with Your Sacred Wild Soul, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, any podcast, any of those podcasts, you can find us. And then at buzzsprout.com, Your Sacred Wild Soul. And then you can find me right now over on at pianofunplayer.com. That's my website. That is in progress. I must caution. It's there, but it's in process.
That's excellent. And is your podcast linked on that website as well?
No, it's linked to my other website.
Oh, and that is?
soulsoundinsights.com.
Oh, nice. So if we go to soulsoundinsights.com, we can hear your podcast there.
Well, no, you want to link the podcast all by itself. You can link it on, like I said, Apple, Spotify, anybody, any of those platforms.
Perfect.
It's linked by itself. I mean, you can find it on the website, but it's not inside that website. It is on its own by itself. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And so the name again of the podcast?
Your Sacred Wild Soul Podcast. .buzzsprout, but you can link it whatever platform you listen to your podcast on. That's where we are.
So tell us what's behind the name of your podcast. We always want to know the backstory. Why did you name your podcast?
Well, my partner and I, we were sitting and we said, what comes through to us? We literally, because like I said, part of my work, and I think music is intuitive in great parts. We have the knowledge, that's why we have the theory, but we also have the intuitive part. So the podcast came through as an intuitive thing. And then when I sat down to do the music for it, the music is actually called Calling the Wild. My soundtrack that I composed for it is called Calling the Wild. And that intuitively came because I believe the music is part of that wildness that we all need to tap into.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good story. And I think it is that. And I really resonate with that. I'll share a little personal story with you as well, Ruth, because you're so inspiring to me. And when I was probably around, I guess, 17 years old, my dream was always to play in a jazz band. And I'll never forget this day. I had an audition and I was so excited and, put on, my best little bell-bottom pants and my little top. And my mom said, make sure you put on something bright. Oh, I'm wearing red today. And so I went to this audition and I had my keyboard, in the bag, and I stood at the back and I was terrified. And there were other keyboard players that were auditioning as well for this great band. And I couldn't do it. I was like, I was terrified. So I went back home. I never did audition. I went back home and my mom said to me, oh, how did it go? And I said, yeah, it was really interesting. Heard a lot of other players. I didn't make it, but, and it was just my fear factor. And I think one of the things that I really am so happy that you're doing this is that, you shared with me, I'm stepping outside my comfort zone. Like I've accomplished this and now I'm doing a podcast and now I'm teaching, theory club classes. I'm in the Elite Educator Program. I've got an accountability partner. Like you are just on fire, girl. And it lights me up to say, this is what's possible when you get past that fear factor. I mean, I guess it was God had a plan for me and he said, no, you're going to do this. You're not going to be on stage and become a rock star. But so there's a reason sometimes when we have a different path, but I'm glad that you chose yours because you're really providing that education and encouragement for all the students that you teach too. So I'm excited to see what 2021 is going to bring for you, Ruth.
Well, I think for all of us, that excites me every day when I get up because I guess I really love hearing people's stories because that's really what we're doing every single day. We're each telling our story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we need to learn to listen to each other. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, you're so right. I think that sometimes is a missing factor. We always learn more by listening than we do by talking. And there is a time for us to talk because we're knowledgeable and we're teaching. So obviously we need to speak and our students need to listen. Mm-hmm. And I think one of really important communication factors is that as an educator, we need to learn how to communicate effectively. Because if you're a visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learner, then chances are you're teaching in that learning style because that's how you learn. But in order to become an effective educator, you need to understand the words that your students are using. They may be an auditory learner or visual or kinesthetic or a combination of more than one, but how can I teach to that learner and that learner? And especially when you teach theory club classes, you know, I've taught a lot of theory club classes, and when I have students of different learning styles and abilities, I want to make sure that I'm using all three modalities in every class, because that's how you really learn best, is when you're engaged in all three modalities. And I think you've really provided that, because even in the coaching call, you talked about the tapping and just about mindset. And I think that is something that I'm really grateful that you shared, because it was the first time I'd ever done something like that myself. So I'm like, I'm learning something new today.
Well, so you know, and I'm glad you mentioned the tapping. That's another modality. If people aren't aware, it's developed from the emotional freedom technique, and it's a way of, it comes out of acupuncture and acupressure. And so it's another way of us connecting with our mind, body, spirit, because that's what music does. It connects all of ourselves. And so the tapping is one more way of doing that.
Yeah, I think it's become really powerful, I think, and maybe this year more than any other, because of, you know, what's happened in the world in 2020. Obviously, there's so many changes that for some people, they weren't able to attend maybe sporting events or this or that. And so music has been a way for them to just go into that moment, either to go into education for music or just to enjoy music, to, you know, help their soul, to motivate them to, what, you know, I always say, think about this. Think about going to work out. I mean, are you going to put on, you know, the Strauss waltz? Probably not. Why not? It's a lovely waltz, you know, the Blue Danube, whatever it might be. But, you know, the dance of the sugar plum fairies and all the rest of it. But that's not what's going to get you pumped in order to work out at the gym. Just the same as if, you know, someone has passed on and you're playing music at a funeral, you're not going to play cartoon music, you know, the Bugs Bunny stuff. So music has a way of putting us in a place.
Yes.
And it also creates memory, that when you hear a song, and I'm sure this happens for you as well, Ruth, it will take you to a place in time when maybe it was when you know, had met your first love or your first date, or it'll bring memory back. And we see that in when you go into nursing homes, and, you know, maybe they're not able to express themselves, but if you play music, you know, what happens?
You basically start connecting. That brings me to, with my club class right now, I not only have them doing the material in the book, but there's one particular song that came, and I don't know if you've ever seen this young woman, because it kind of reminds me of your daughter. Her name is Grace Kelly, and she created this song. It has kind of a little New Orleans feel to it. It's called Lemons Make Lemonade.
Yeah.
And I have them listening to that, because part of their assignment is to hear it by ear and start to play it. Yeah. But lemons make lemonade, and that's kind of what this year has been all about, you see. And as you were talking about how music connects with us, it has the effect of rewiring our whole self.
Yeah. It's really powerful. My daughter has had a lot of struggles physically. She was in Cirque du Soleil in the Viva Elvis show. And when she was up, you know, 100 feet in the air playing the piano, and the harness snapped. And so there she was in pain. And, you know, she had options to have surgery. When they said this may make you 100% better, it may make it worse. there's little bones, stuff all over the place, or you may never recover and be in pain for the rest of your life. And so, she came back to Winnipeg and we went to the doctors and, okay, now you have surgery, it'll be about 3 months from now before you can even get in. And she said to me, I am going to, with God, I'm going to heal myself through the power of healing frequencies.
Yes.
And she was religious about, she moved into my music studio, and that became her bedroom. And she loves the grand piano, so she would be playing every day. My piano never sounded that good. and then she would put her headset on and she would literally understand what was needed to help her body. Now, true story. I mean, I would hardly believe it, except that I witnessed the entire thing. I was with her at the doctor's appointments. So we go to the doctor's appointment, and this is now about a week before the said surgery. And again, he's saying it'll probably get worse. It might get better. We don't know. And he said, let's do another x-ray and see how things are going. And by this time, she's feeling pretty fantastic. She's been working out and she's been doing her healing frequencies, meditation every single day, like all day. So he comes back and I'm in the room and he kind of looks at her and he said, well, this is odd. And she's like, uh-oh, what happened? And he said, there is nothing to do surgery on. Like you're healed. And she smiled and she said, I knew it. Like, you just need someone to, and I knew it too, but I don't think I had like as much faith as she did. But it just shows you that when you believe and understand, music can transform your life. It can heal your body. And this is science, right? This isn't us just getting lucky and once in a blue moon. Yeah.
I know that to be so. I just very quickly, I last year I was having this whole thing with the sciatic nerve. Yeah. And one day I got my tuning forks out. I have this set of tuning forks, and they're in a fifth. They're C and a G, and it's a perfect fifth. Yeah. And I started, I hit the tuning fork, and I particularly used the G. And I went up and down the side of my body. And I could literally, with the tuning fork, I could tell where the sound was kind of dull, where the pain was. And then I take the C for the other side. And I kept doing that. And it wasn't very long before the nerves started quieting. And I'd already, just like Sherry had understood that she could heal. We all can with the frequency.
Yeah.
But because we've told that this is not the way you're supposed to do it, but she believed that was the way she was supposed to do it. And I believed, and it does, it works. Yeah. Yeah. Sound healing is the thing that's coming on. 2021, we're going to be seeing a lot of that.
Yeah. And I think that is a powerful message. And it's just, when you think about music, there's so many things that it does. It transforms you into a place of memory. It helps you learn better. You often hear about university students that have certain music. It also puts you in state. And by that, I mean, even when I was presenting live events, I have certain songs, I have my little soundtrack that put me in state, that prepare me mentally, physically, emotionally to do my best. And it also is a time for maybe reflection, maybe for ending your day. Maybe if you just want to meditate, you just don't want to be pumping out the jazzy stuff. You just want to, I mean, life without music would be pretty empty. And we are just so blessed to be in the industry where we can not only enjoy it, it's, physical components to help us, but to be educators, and in fact, elite educators, because we're so passionate about learning and growing. And I've just been so honored to have you in the Elite Educator Program and sharing your knowledge. I've learned a lot from you too, Ruth.
Well, and I've learned ditto, Miss Glory, ditto.
It's been really, really wonderful. Just in wrapping things up, can you share maybe what was your biggest takeaway inside the UMTC Elite Educator Program for you?
I think the biggest one was, like I said, community. For me, because I tend to be kind of insular, I'm listening to what I'm thinking in my own head. And by being willing to step out and be with the other people each week, I mean, every week I showed up.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing, to show up
Yes.
and be open, because you never know. And that's I think, the way I conduct my life is I open my heart and I say, okay, what's going to come today? I try never to go, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. But I do my best to stay open. And so the coaching, it just went right along with that whole way of looking at life, my philosophy of being open.
Yeah. And I think that is, it's my philosophy too. We share that one. I think it's so important to be open. No one on planet Earth knows everything about everything. It's impossible. But if we're just open and we just learn one thing, and then we implement that and then process it, and then put those little strategies in our brain and then teach it. To me, that's the most powerful transformation, is to learn, to grow, to teach, and then repeat, because that's really, and I think it makes you feel like you have a purpose, because we can also absorb a lot of knowledge. You can read books all day long, and
I've read a lot of books. I understand where you're coming from. A lot of books.
Yeah, but if we don't share that knowledge, then it's almost wasted. Like we've taken it in. And I know that, even from our coaching calls, I'm always reading and learning, and then I teach it, and then it reinforces that in my brain. And I think as musicians, we do the same. You might learn a new little jazz lick, and then you're like, you know what, I got to teach this like right away, because now your students will ask you questions. How did you learn that, Ruth? Did you learn it by ear? Did you make it up? Is it an original? Did you read it somewhere? Like, how did you figure that out? And then your response is reinforcing what you learned, and now you're sharing that. And that's the greatest gift of all, isn't it?
I have to share this right quick. My one adult student who is 76 years old.
Wow.
And basically he says, I just got to learn jazz. And so we had Autumn Leaves, and I had to write it on, because he had eye issues. Yeah. And so I had to write it in purple marker on a yellow legal pad. I wrote the whole song out and went through it step by step, first ending, second ending, and everything. And it was so gratifying to see him, because I'm going to have a little jam. My recital is going to be a little jam for everybody at the end of the year. Yeah. And so he basically says, well, the chords are still mystifying me, but I've got the melody. And to hear this person finally take the melody off of this legal pad, and with purple marker, I had to specifically use purple marker because that's what he could see. Yeah. And he played Autumn Leaves with his right hand. I mean, with some amount of swing to it, Yeah. So those are the kinds of things that make my heart glad.
Yeah. Oh, me too. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your stories with us today. And I guess my final question for you, Ruth, is, we've got listeners out there that are watching our interview today. And what would you say to someone who is just thinking about taking the program and investing in the Elite Educator Program?
I would say, if you open yourself to moving forward in your own way. See, the thing that has to happen, there's all the material. And at first it is kind of confusing, because you got everybody out there, Glory is a fountain of knowledge, and she will give you a lot of stuff. But what has to happen, you have to start sifting and sorting, and then it starts after a while, it becomes part of you. You begin to take it and tweak it. Each one of us has to tweak it to make it our own. But the main thing is, like I said, being in community with others who are also tweaking at the same time. We're all going through the process at the same time. And it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work too.
Yeah.
And but it's a joy.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Ruth. You know, I always say if you really want something, you have to be willing to put in the work. You can't rise to the top of the hill by not climbing it. You can't just wish you were there. You have to do the work. And I have really seen the immense work that you have put into your success story, and we're just getting started. It's going to be it's going to be fantastic. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope you have an amazing 2021, because we got a lot of stories to tell. So thank you so much, Ruth. I really appreciate it.
Well, we're on the universal year of number 5, and number 5 is freedom from fear and moving on down the road and into the adventure. So I'm looking forward to the adventure, and thank you for
thanks, Ruth.
Being the motivator.
The adventure begins. Yay! Thanks. Have a great day, Ruth.
Thank you.